it could just be that I talk quieter. That could be it too.
So since I disconnected everything and reset it up, I haven't recorded on that microphone yet. So it's picking you up.
Okay.
All this is going to get edited out probably. Or it'll just be the dumbest B-roll to start a podcast. You know what? Let's just make it. Let's just make that the start of the podcast. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on Untitled. Not very happy to have you here. I'm beyond happy to have you here. I'm pumped to have you here. We have a special guest. First guest we've had of 2024. Super excited to have Bre Eckaet here. And Bre actually is kind of like the spark on this whole podcast thing for me in general, because I wanted to do it for the longest time. Couldn't grow a pair and actually step up and do it. And then she was like, I'm doing a podcast. My friend Nick, who lives next door, kind of connected us. Did her podcast about this time last year, beginning of the year. And yours is just taken off. Quite a bit.
Doesn't feel like it, but
well,
that's what everybody keeps telling me.
From the, yeah, it never feels that way when you're in it, right?
No.
But I mean, well, before we get into it too much, always got to have our sponsor for the day, because obviously they're paying for this. So today's podcast is brought to you by Bouncy Balls, available in those quarter machines you see outside of stores sometimes, maybe near you. There's a Walmart near our house that has one. They got the green ones. They got green bouncy balls. Do you ever buy stuff from those when you were a little kid?
Oh, yeah.
I freaking love those things. The sticky hands. I actually went on Amazon the other day and looked up. You can buy like an industrial pack of those huge sticky hands.
Man, those things used to annoy me.
Yeah.
I don't know why. They would annoy me. Like when people would throw them at me, I'd be like, ooh, you're about to get a 3-piece.
Oh, man. Yeah, those little quarter machines. I wonder if they got any pricier ones now. I wonder if inflation has hit the old quarter machines, and now you got to put a dollar bill in like the soda machines to get.
They probably got like credit card swipers now.
You can just cash
Crypto,
app us.
You can send them Bitcoin. I swear.
Seriously.
That's where we've gotten to as a society.
That would not surprise me at all. But in all reality, seriously, you are doing a lot right now. And I don't say that in like a negative way, but like you're doing a lot.
Yes.
From what I can see, you're very active on social media, getting the content out there. You host 2 different podcasts.
Yeah.
And do you have 2 different or 3 different YouTube channels? Because I wasn't sure if
I have
Bre
2 channels.
Okay. I wasn't sure if BRE podcast was the Bre Fit, if that became that, or if it was a separate thing.
That started, so I started doing fitness content.
Yeah.
Because I had just gotten like my NASM certification or whatever. And that was like actually something I was interested in potentially doing. But I didn't really, like I wanted to be my own boss in whatever I was doing. And I don't know, I didn't know where to start. So I was like, I don't really, I've been an entrepreneur now, so I don't ever want to go back to like having a boss.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, because weren't you managing?
It's like I'd rather make less money and have more freedom than make more money. Because I'm like, and I'm kind of just going right into things here because that's just how I roll. But
go for it.
But it's like I had my own insurance agency.
Yeah. And
so I got a taste of entrepreneurship. It didn't feel completely like entrepreneurship because it wasn't my company, that I was representing. I was a small business owner in that sense. I hired my own employees. I did, my own marketing and stuff like that. And it was my name on the door. But at the end of the day, I don't make their policies. I don't, it's not my product. And then they change things all the time. And in the insurance industry now, it's just a mess. So that was kind of what drove me out. But at the end of the day, really, when I look at it, it actually started when I got diagnosed with lupus. And that was when my mentality really shifted toward, I really do need to be my own boss because, I have an illness that's very much tied to stress. And if I'm in an industry or if I'm in a career, that stress is very apparent, or if it's, if my job is very stressful, which insurance was for me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't stressful in the fact that it was like really difficult, because it was difficult. Insurance is not an easy job. And it's just mentally, when you're constantly dealing with negative occurrences, like I got in a car accident, my house is on fire, there's a flood, there's a tornado. It's like, God, like the negative energy that you have to receive on a daily basis is just like unreal. So I think that had a lot to do with why I kept getting sick. Because since I got out of that, I haven't had like flare-ups that lasted for like months, there'll be maybe like I got the flu or something a couple months ago, or maybe that was like only a month ago, actually. It was pretty recent, but it felt like forever because I was sick for literally 4 weeks. And so like that happens when I get sick sometimes, if I get like a virus. But just with lupus, like I haven't had one of those really bad flare-ups to the point where, like I couldn't do anything. I'm still in the gym. I'm still hitting the bag, at least if I can't go to the gym. So I'm staying active. But that shifted when I kind of decided to really pursue like being my own boss and doing what I want to do when I want to do it.
How young did you start doing the insurance thing to already have your own agency and then move away from it? Because you're not even 30 yet, right?
No, I'm 28.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I started insurance when I was 22.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with life insurance. That's how I started.
Life, health, casualty.
Yep. I was 100% commission when I started. So like I started from scratch, and it was that was probably the most difficult job ever, just because like you are your own boss in a sense, in that way of like, you don't have anybody giving you a paycheck every week. You don't have anybody really to tell you what to do, which sounds like a good thing when you're 22, but you probably do need some guidance at that age. So
yeah, I took an insurance job right out of college too. So like I went and got my life, health, casualty license in Missouri and was selling basically I was selling Medicare supplements to people through a company called Bankers Life and Casualty. And I hated it. I only made it like 3 months, and I had so many sellbacks that it was not worth it, because they were having us push products that I didn't believe in. And that was the hardest part about sales for me, was selling products that I didn't necessarily believe. Like, why would I try to sell you $100 a month policy when you only have $200 in expendable income? Like, am I doing you a favor? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say. So it was really hard, but that insurance industry is rough, and especially right now, because I know that IULs are doing very well, but not a lot of people even know what that stuff is.
Well,
so
the funny thing, it's funny you mentioned that. I was pushing IULs a long time ago, and everybody thought I was crazy.
Yeah, now they're...
And I was like, dude, what are you guys talking about? I'm like, I see the trends. I see where everything is going. I'm like...
Yeah.
So it's funny. I feel like that was kind of actually one part of it that I did enjoy, was doing the IULs and the kind of getting more into, I guess, the financial side of it, and like, oh, this is actually, you're not just paying, we called it death insurance.
Yeah.
That's what we call term.
That's like, a very fun name for an insurance.
Yeah, because it's just like, you're not going to be able to use, you're probably not going to use
the complete opposite of what everyone else, life insurance. We call it death insurance. You're not going to get to use it.
It's funny, yeah. But you know what's funny about doing life insurance? It actually, and we're gonna go on a lot of journeys here today.
Let's do it.
That's just how I roll.
Let's take a walk.
But like, so when I did life insurance, that is what sparked my interest in fitness, because like my lifestyle was not very healthy when I started doing life insurance. It wasn't.
So was the
I learned
fitness
about
as a
mortality.
Supplement? Oh. Is that really when everything kind of the autoimmune stuff started, or did you know that you had lupus prior to that?
I had a couple weird things happen around that age. Like when I started doing insurance, I had, they said I had like a kidney stone, but then like they thought I didn't have one, but then another doctor said I did. I don't know. It was so weird.
That's why they call it practice.
It was so weird. It was like, I don't know what happened.
They hardly know what's going on.
I don't know what happened. I was at urgent care, so I'm like, yeah, they don't know what's going on. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I probably came to the wrong place for this, but
yeah.
but like weird stuff started happening like that, where I had to go to like a hospital or an urgent care or something. Like, I had to be seen right away. Because I was in so much pain or just like something weird. Like I can't remember what exactly happened, but there was one time where I was like probably dehydrated a little bit, but I was like, felt like I was going to pass out. And like, I don't know, just like weird stuff started happening where I wasn't like worried that something was wrong with me. But now looking back at it, I'm like, oh, that was probably something to do with lupus because you know, there was no answer for it. Nobody knew what was going on. I didn't think anything of it because there was no like immediate diagnosis of anything. So I was just like, all right, I'm good. You know, and I try to avoid going to the doctor as much as possible. So
I don't blame you.
But anyways, so getting back to what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So life insurance really sparked my interest in fitness because I learned, like I said, I learned about mortality, and I realized, you know, that like I met with people who were smokers. I met with people who had diabetes. I met with people who had all these different, I guess, things that lower your mortality, if you will.
Yeah. You were looking at all the statistical stuff and actually meeting these people and being like, okay, so this is the statistics.
Yes.
These are them.
Yes. And I was like, wow, this is alarming, you know?
I still haven't, and I don't say this to shame this person, because they're probably not with us anymore. But I can remember walking into a home in West Plains, Missouri, and there being just this putrid smell. This was a call.
God.
Someone asked us to come out and sell them death benefits. Like, they knew that they were going to die.
Yeah.
And we had a policy that was zero denial through like Colonial Penn, like what you used to see on TV. We used to sell one of their products, and she wanted a $10,000 death benefit policy to do this. And like, there's roaches on the ground. She's $680 of Medicare every 2 weeks. That's all she has money wise.
Oh my gosh.
And like, that was that moment where it hit me that I don't know if I want to do this. Like, and you are confronted, sales in general, but especially in insurance. Like,
were you doing final expense?
That was one of the things that they sold. So it was a final expense plan through Colonial Penn.
I was like,
rough.
yeah, I'm not doing final expense.
I sold one of them to that lady. And
they tried to get me to do it a few times, and I was
rough.
like, I just.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's calling you, they know you're not buying a final expense policy if you're healthy. You're buying one if you can't get approved for anything else, and you just don't want to screw your kids over, basically, or whoever.
Got to the point where I was like, I only want to do IULs. I'm like, I don't want to do anything else.
It's
maybe
clean.
whole life if you have a good product, but if you don't have a good product, I don't want to sell that either.
Yeah. Well, so you're selling insurance. You get into health because you see what statistically happens to people who don't.
That's when I started getting into like the Joe Rogan, Andrew Huberman, podcast world, I guess you could say, because I was already a Joe Rogan fan before, but with his comedy, I didn't really, and like, of course, his UFC commentary, but I didn't even really pay attention to the podcast that much until, probably around that time.
Yeah.
Plus, you're driving in your car to these appointments and you're bored, so you look for all these different podcasts and audiobooks. So,
I was a big Dan Patrick person for a while. I don't know if you remember who Dan Patrick was. He was on ESPN, and then he now has the Dan Patrick Show, but he was ESPN and NBC, CNN, and then now he does sports stuff. And I don't really listen to him anymore, but that was kind of what got me into podcasting, was sports podcasts.
Really?
I was like, like podcasts in general, like listening to them was sports podcasts, because we would play fantasy football and all it was who had the most information. So I'd listen to like 6 of these different podcasts every day. You know, Clay what's his name? Clay down in Tennessee, who has Outkick. I keep wanting to call him Clay Thompson, but I know it's not Clay Thompson. Clay Travis.
Okay.
Rich Eisen, Dan Patrick, and all those guys. And they all had these great voices, radio faces, though.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I've always wanted to talk with people, but like the sales stuff never worked because I didn't get to talk about what I wanted to talk about. I think that was a big part of what you're saying is like, you're so cornered in. And I'm trying to think of big agencies out here. State Farm, maybe?
I was with Farmers.
Farmers. Okay.
Yeah.
So like with Farmers, you know, you sell their product, you sell their values, you sell their name on everything.
Yep.
And I've heard of people doing the private thing where they're kind of like a broker almost, but
if I would have come
tough.
into it with my own agency a year earlier or 2 years, probably 2 years earlier, I probably would have done really well.
But how do you walk away from that? Because, I mean, other than the health stuff, is that literally what it was? Is the health stuff that made you walk away?
It got to the point where that was it, yeah. Because I tried to stay in it for so much longer than I probably should have. And I thought I could run it by myself. No.
Did you have agents
You
under
need
you?
a team to run an insurance agency. You cannot do it by yourself.
Yeah, and that's all
I mean,
overhead.
people do. There's some people that do it. I don't know how they do it.
Crazy.
I tried it, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
It was an actual nightmare. So I was like, yeah, I can't do this because I couldn't afford employees anymore. Because all my customers were leaving in droves because the rates went up.
Oh,
yeah.
Farmers rates?
Yeah, skyrocketed. So I lost a lot of business.
And that's completely out of your control.
And I was running it by myself. So here I am. And I like hired my sister-in-law for a little while. But even she was just like seeing the direction things were going. And she's like, man, I don't know about this. And I was like, yeah, I don't know either. I'm like, I think I might need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I had that realization. And then I was like, yeah. And just the stress too. And I had already decided I was going to do this before I left, but I wasn't thinking I was going to leave as soon as I did. Cause I was like, well, I want to get going and like figure out a new career before I leave. But it got to the point where my health was so deteriorated at that point that I was like, yeah, I see the direction that this is going in. Yeah, that's not going to be good.
So while we're kind of on that subject of health, there are probably a lot of people who have heard that word before, lupus, but have no idea what it is. And I have a very basic understanding of it. I understand it's an autoimmune disease. I know that certain aspects of it can attack like joints, similar to like arthritis, but it also drains the energy. I know that it affects like 80% of the cases or plus are women. It's a majority women contracted. And I've heard some of the treatments for it are crazy, like black widow venom treatments.
Where they never like, tried that on me.
Yeah,
but,
they like synthesize.
Maybe they should. I don't know.
They found some weird things like that, like where they'll synthesize something from an amino acid in a venom. Yeah, wow. They do one for lowers blood pressure from snake venom too.
That's wild.
Yeah. So, but yeah, for the people who aren't familiar, what is lupus? And I guess you can talk about you specifically, how it affects you, or maybe in general, but like just so that people understand like what we're actually talking about, that it's not like I'm just tired.
I know it's so hard because like I don't ever want to be the person that's like always seeming like I'm looking for like sympathy or complaining, because like that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is raise awareness, because I actually was kind of surprised at how many people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that because I knew what it was because I did life insurance.
I knew what it was from Seinfeld. Because George always thought he had lupus. Because he's a hypochondriac. I forgot about that. Yeah. That's the only reason.
Yeah, but I knew what it was from doing life insurance because I had a client that had lupus. That's how I learned about what it was. Yes. So that's why I was getting back to that. Like, that's how I got into health, because it came in handy later when I never thought that I would ever get diagnosed with like a disease or something. Like, it just, I don't know. So I almost feel like that was like probably maybe the universe's way of preparing me for getting this diagnosis. It was like, I don't know. It's just very funny how the universe works sometimes. Like,
yeah, it all
it's
just kind of
crazy.
lined up for you there.
Yeah, a little bit.
So specifically, like, did it start drastically, or do you remember it? I mean, it sounds like from what you understand now, looking back, that you saw symptomology throughout your life. But when the stress kicks on, is it like a fairly immediate thing for you, where like life gets stressful and within a day or so, it's like you get a cold sore on your lip, like how that will happen with me sometimes.
Yeah.
But with you, it's lethargic, joint pain. Like, what is that even like? Is it like migraines almost, where it just shuts you down?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, it's hard to describe to people because it's not, fatigue and being tired are like two completely different things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, fatigue is, man, it's hard to even get out of bed. Like, and it's not just like, oh, I'm sleepy. It's like, no, I literally will be like, I'll get up and I'll be like dizzy. Like, that's it's like you have not slept. That's what it feels like. It feels like you didn't even sleep. Like, your body's not done. Like, your body's like, no, get back in here. Get back in the bed. Like, we need more sleep.
And is there anything that like they medicinally that they give you that helps knock out that stuff quickly? Like a not like Tylenol or something, but do they actually have a medication that helps, or is it all just
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on, you know, how much you're willing to put in your body, I guess. Because I could go to the doctor and, you know, get whatever treatment they want to give me, but I'm not even on medication right now. Like, I've been off medication for a year.
Was it like, were the side effects rough from some of the stuff, or is it just that it's more of now you kind of see the behind the curtain of the pharmacology industry and go, I don't know if I should be taking anything?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I've had some weird side effects from medicines. I've had some weird side effects from vaccines, and I'm not even an anti-vax person because I've gotten a lot of vaccines, and a lot of them have probably helped me a lot. But
a lot of them probably without you even knowing.
There's a couple of them that maybe not so much.
Yeah.
You know, I got the Gardasil vaccine, and I reacted really bad to that one.
Really?
Yeah, but and that's just one example. I know a lot of people had side effects from that one. So I've been, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more wary. Not necessarily that drugs are bad or that, you know, there are some very good uses of medication that save people's lives, literally. So, you know, I'm not anti-medication, but for me, I just know that my body just seems to react to everything. And I think part of that is just from having lupus. I think that's just part of it. Like, your body reacts to everything.
Yeah.
It reacts to stress. It reacts to just, like, even when I'm around certain people, like, their energy.
No way.
Just like, ugh.
Oh,
like,
it kind of like drives you up.
And I know this is sounding really hippie right now, but like,
putting off bad vibes, dude. Trigger my loop. Trigger my loop, bro.
Though, it's so true though. Like,
I get you.
If I'm around like negative people enough, like I feel it.
Talk about literally someone getting under your skin. It's like what it feels like. Probably.
I know, it's crazy, but like, and that's kind of, you know, it's a little out there, but for the most part, yeah, like stress. I'm trying to think of other things that would trigger lupus. I mean, certain food, if I eat a lot of junk food, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that usually will make my skin break out and rashes, which that's been the most annoying symptom is the rashes, because that's the only one that I can't figure out how to get rid of. Like, I can't figure out how to get rid of the fatigue. I can't figure out the joint pain. I can't figure out the rashes.
Yeah.
But I've been able to keep everything else at bay.
Probably want to slam you with a bunch of corticos and stuff like that too.
Yeah, when I first got sick, they put me on a steroid.
Yeah.
And which worked. I mean,
like magic.
Man, I felt like Superman. But then I was like, "Nah, this can't be good."
Yeah.
If a medicine works that good, I'm like, "No, there's something wrong." Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, this feels
too
easy.
Yeah.
This is too easy because a lot of it is lifestyle. And so I think that
Interesting.
a lot of the lifestyle changes that I made have been more effective long term than any medication.
It's too bad you can't just get rid of shitty people
I
completely.
know.
It's gonna
Yeah,
drive you
get
up
your
a
bad
wall.
vibes away from
Yeah.
me, guys.
You're triggering my loop, bro. Man. Yeah,
That's funny.
when we first talked and I heard about that, it made me go do a little bit more research on it, because like originally I you hear about something and you hear the things and you just wonder, but like that one of the hardest parts about working out is staying in it. And if once every couple weeks or once every couple months you have to take a week off, like I think a lot of people think you need to take weeks off all the time, where you take like a full week. It's like, no, you take days off take days off, but don't take weeks off. And when you're forced to sit out for a week, it's that mental battle of getting back into it each time. And like, I know for me personally, I have my back issue, you've got your lupus issue. And then there's that like anxiety almost about like doing something that's going to trigger or flare it up.
Yeah.
That you got to be careful about everything you do, the situations you're in. Like I've been working out this week and my low back is so racked after just 3 days, where I used to go 7 days a week, 2 hours a day. And so it's just trying to change and adapt to that stuff. So like, how have you had to change and adapt given that like all of this nonsense, it's out of your control?
Yeah. I mean, I try to remove things from my life that I know will trigger flare-ups. So I don't drink alcohol anymore. That was probably one of the biggest lifestyle changes that I made. It's been almost a year and a half, I think.
Wow.
So
congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, I know.
That's
I feel
huge.
weird saying that because it's like everybody's like, "Oh, are you an AA?" And I'm like, "No, I just it's
Breeze
for my
off the wagon.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, and I don't even know if I will like quit drinking forever, but I think I just don't see any benefit from it. So I mean, I've had some good times, with alcohol. And I love a good glass of bourbon. Like I do love that. Like that's just something I really do enjoy, is having a glass of really good bourbon. So that may be the only thing I ever go back to. And when I'm like older and rich, is like get my fancy bottle of bourbon.
Just go over to Nick's house. Dude, the guy's got so much bourbon.
Yeah,
it's
that would
ridiculous.
be dangerous.
But you can't. So like,
I've given all of it up. I've given all of it up. No, and there are some times, like there was one time I went to Nashville and I was very conservative with my drinking. Like I only had the most drinks I had in one day was 3. And
yeah, that's not bad at all.
I felt great. I felt fine. So, but then there was another time where I had like 2 drinks and then I felt horrible. So it's like, I don't know, maybe it depends on like,
it could be anything.
What's going on with my body too? Like, what am I eating? What's, So I don't know, but I would rather not take the chance. So I just get rid of it. But also, the research that I've done on alcohol has just really made a lot of sense with why it has caused certain problems for me, not only with lupus, but also like the fact that it raises your cortisol levels. Because I did feel like more stressed out whenever I was drinking, even though I wasn't drinking all the time, even just drinking like a couple days a week. And I felt a little bit more stressed. So now I'm like, oh, I don't really feel stressed. So maybe that is something that was causing me stress and I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'm just going to get rid of it. And haven't had the desire to drink again. So I don't know.
Yeah. I am more of the, I don't drink because to me, what's the point of having a drink? Like I was always that type of person that if I'm going to drink, we're going to.
Oh yeah. You have to have at least like 2 or 3.
Drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
but 2 or 3 for me is a lot.
Yeah.
I'm small. So.
And like, I think the last time I had a drink was 2 4th of Julys ago. No,
oh, wow.
I've had a beer since then. with Nick when him and John, his buddy John, they redid their house, and when he got it all redone, I went over there and had a natural light or bush light, whatever the people
That's
drink
funny.
out here.
Yeah.
I own a beer hat just because it looks cool. That's about it. I'm not a big beer drinker. I don't like. I'm kind of like you. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze on it.
The
hangovers
benefits don't outweigh the cons by any means.
Yeah, and like in all reality, the calories alone, for me, I put on weight like that. So if I drink,
I have been too lately.
Yeah, if I
the
drink,
past couple years,
I'm gaining water weight like 10 pounds. If
Yep.
I eat something too salty, and now because I'm way less active than I was due to just physical circumstances, it's like, dude, I got to be very careful.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Like you're still 28. You're still in your 20s. It's not like I guess I'm 5 years older than you, but like it's crazy the difference that I feel between 23 and 33. But I don't have like this recognition of 13 to 23, my body feeling way, way different other than just being bigger. But things hurt now. Different foods cause me problems now. Like It's weird how, and I don't know if it's our generation, just all the exposure to the crap that we've been exposed to, like in the air and whatnot. But I just feel like we're aging a little bit quicker. Like that millennial age group is looking in their 40s, even though we're all in our 20s and 30s.
A lot of it is lifestyle, and it's. I think the problem is that a healthy lifestyle is not normalized at all.
Oh, it's not.
You're weird. Like, people think I am weird. I mean, I don't care what they think.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think I'm weird.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't drink anymore. And that's also, besides the health and besides the stress levels, cortisol, whatever you want to call it. Besides all of that, I actually do think that not drinking alcohol gives you an advantage over other people.
I can see that.
100%. Because if you think about it, most people drink alcohol, right? Most adults.
Quite a few.
People over 21. Even people over 18. If you really think about it.
Globally, I think alcohol is a lot different. In America, I feel like it's like this
very normalized
mystical thing that we don't talk about for young kids as much.
Yeah.
And then kids turn 21 and they just go crazy, some of them. Or, they sneak in drinks. Whereas in like European models, it's just, you have a beer with dinner at 13, whatever, a glass of wine. Like they're way more blasé about it, and they have way less issues with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. I don't know if our alcohol is even good alcohol, really. I've never been around the world and drank it.
I haven't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, but like, if you think about it, what do, I would say, not most people, because I know there's a lot of people out there that, they're working on the weekends, they're, doing stuff with their family, like whatever. So not everybody does this, but most people, especially in my age group, are going out on the weekends.
Yeah.
With their friends. I mean, that's what I was doing for a while.
Yeah.
Because it's like the normal thing to do. So if you're not doing that and you're doing something else instead, if you're working on a skill that you're trying to improve, if you're, learning something, I feel like, or if you're just working on, building a business, whatever it is, in that time that you would have been going to hang out with your friends or whatever on the weekend. And I think it's good to have a social life, don't get me wrong. But if you're replacing that time with something productive, then you're absolutely going to get ahead of most people because they're not doing that.
Yeah.
So I think that's another reason why I knew that quitting alcohol would be a good thing before, because I had done a couple like sober Octobers, and I'd quit for like, a month or a few months at a time before, just kind of take a break. So I knew, but it was just like, but I want to hang out with my friends. Yeah, but I want to do this. And then getting lupus, that was really what like
Yeah.
pushed me over the edge to finally quit.
It kind of draws closer to something I did want to ask you about, but like it points to something that I definitely see, something that I don't necessarily want to say I'm worried about, but you know, things have changed a lot in the last few years. And like for someone like you who doesn't drink, you're not going out to the bars, you're not, you know, you're very career and goal oriented and focused right now at this period of your life. So like, how do you meet people to hang out with?
I don't hang out with people.
So right now you're 100% set on what you're focused on for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I go to the gym.
Yeah.
I go to an MMA gym. I go to ES MMA and Fitness. That's where I train.
Okay.
Right now I'm trying to learn kickboxing. I've been doing the boxing classes there though since September. And obviously like I've trained before, but I took some time off, so now I'm like, you know, back into it. But that to me feels like my social time. So I don't crave that social life as much. And I think that's the key. I think that if you want to have that kind of a lifestyle and be able to be focused on your career, you have to surround yourself with other people who are doing the same thing. Because fighters, they're not going out, you know.
No.
They're
Not
I
the
mean,
good
some
ones.
of them are. Some of them are.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few John Jones out there that are able to just get destroyed and go out and perform, but
yeah.
I'd
But
say
for the most part,
yeah.
those are outliers.
Yeah.
And they usually have crazy genetics and, you know, they're in their prime, they're young, whatever. But
yeah, it kind of blew my mind, like especially with a guy like Sean O'Malley, where you hear him get interviewed and he's like, I'm off caffeine, I'm off alcohol. I mean, he still smokes weed, but like for the most part, you would look at him and think, this dude is partying. He looks like that 6'9" guy, super colorful character.
yeah.
But they're all straight edge and so goal oriented.
Yes. You have to be, because at this point, and I was just talking about this, at this point in mixed martial arts, you can't miss anything in your training, in your nutrition, in your anything, even as an amateur. It's gotten to the point where amateur fighters are, I mean, they're taking it just as seriously as a lot of the pros are. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. I mean, there's some amateur fighters where if I took you through like their daily routine, and I took you through their weight cut and I took you through their preparation for the fight and I didn't tell you they were an amateur, you would have thought they were a pro.
Now, when you're saying amateur, are you referring to smaller organizations or unpaid fighters?
Yeah, just amateur fighters.
So on smaller, like someone who's they're getting paid to fight.
Yeah, so the amateur fights, they don't count on your professional record. Okay. Yeah, you don't get paid.
I don't know how that all works, because I've noticed that like some of these people have 100 fights on their record and some will have like 6.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then the UFC's got their own record, and then they, you know, Pride's got their own. So explain that a little bit for me as you kind of
I actually think that amateur MMA and amateur kickboxing and Muay Thai is probably going to get more popular, especially on a local level, because they are, like I said, they're taking it a lot more seriously. The sport has evolved so much, and they really need that amateur career a lot of times to build and get the experience and the skills, because once you go to the UFC, I mean, it's hard to stay in there.
Well, and it was way smaller. Like the UFC was way smaller just 5 years ago. The UFC exploded during COVID, and I don't think a lot of people realize the type of growth that we're talking about between 2020.
Insane.
Yeah,
insane.
The numbers are crazy when you look at viewership, when you look at revenue. It's through the roof. So it shows that there's a huge growth in this sport, which means you have to have a larger minor league system in a way. Like you have to have these smaller promotions to feed the bigger promotions.
Yep.
And I think a lot of these guys know that. Like they think, and not all of them are UFC focused. Some of them just want to be K1, or they just want to fight Pride or whatever it is, or Muay Thai.
Yeah.
It's not all about the UFC, and we do focus on that a lot because it is probably the most popular mixed martial arts out there.
Yeah, to me, the UFC is like the top of the heap. Like, if you're in the
Yeah.
UFC, you're the best, you know? And there are fighters in PFL that I think would be able to at least crack the top 15 in the UFC. There's just not, there's very few of them that I think could make it to the championship level. Like, Patchy Mix is one that comes to mind of somebody who I think could actually, like, if him and Sean O'Malley got matched up, I might pick Patchy Mix in that fight. So there's some examples of that. They're not very common. I think the biggest thing is that there's just a smaller roster in those organizations, but that's why I think that we're gonna see a big shift, because there's a lot of amateur fighters out there right now. And that's kind of what I was saying, and they're doing like 10 to 12 fights as an amateur before they're going pro right now. A lot of times. So where they used to only do like, I don't know. I mean, a lot of times the most you would see in an amateur was like 10 fights, you know, before
they're probably
they go pro.
fighting way more frequently too, because you can't get by on 2 fights a year as an amateur.
No, I just dropped the episode, I think it was yesterday, with Ray Hayes. He's a 2-0 pro fighter, based in Missouri. He's from Lebanon. But he's fighting. There's a card in Nemesis Fighting Alliance coming up on March 1st at the Armory. He's fighting on that card. He fought for Nemesis as an amateur last year. And he fought 10 times
in a year
as an amateur.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Full MMA fights?
Yeah. Well, amateur fights, the rounds are only 3 minutes, so they're shorter.
Still.
And I don't think they allow elbows in amateur MMA.
So it might save you some cuts,
but you don't have to wear headgear a lot of times.
Are they wearing any protection on shins or anything? Are they wearing a full glove, or are they still wearing a 4-ounce?
Good question. I don't know 100%. I want to say
way.
no, because I've seen a lot of amateur fights where they don't have any shin guards or anything on. They do in kickboxing and Muay Thai, but not amateur MMA.
I just didn't know if maybe that particular... I know every promotion's got slight variations.
Every promotion has different rules. That's the thing.
Maybe some of them that know they're smaller, maybe they try to protect their fighters. So I was just curious. I've heard of Nemesis from you, viewing your content, but I don't know if I've ever seen anything of theirs. Well,
that's what I was saying. Like, now you have to be so much better as an amateur, because there are so many more promotions. Now I think that there are some promotions, like there are some local shows that do a really good job of making sure that, you know, these fighters are actually taking this seriously. So they're not just throwing people on a card for no reason, like people who have a losing record, and it's like, you know, obviously a huge mismatch, like that happens sometimes. But for the most part, there's like actually probably one of my favorite promotions. It's not MMA, but Stand Up Fight Series is a kickboxing and Muay Thai promotion based in St. Louis, well, St. Charles, I guess you could say. And their matchmaking is really good, like really good matchmaking. And I think their next event is March 30th. And there's 2 professional fights, I believe. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Trey Crawford, I know he's on that card. He's a pro kickboxer. He did pro MMA too. And then I cannot remember for the life of me the name of the other pro fighter that's on the card.
It'll come back.
But the last show that I went to, and I've been to a couple of their shows, and the fights are insane. Like,
is it kind of like that college football versus professional football? Like, they try harder, they work harder. I
think that might be it a little bit.
Have you ever heard that idea of like people like watching college football more because the players try harder because they still have something to prove?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but I wonder if there is an element of that.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, because they like there are a few amateur fighters like Kendall Whited. He's a fighter from my gym. He is fighting for, I think it's the Missouri, Illinois title. So like he's from Missouri and his opponent's from Illinois. So it's kind of like a Missouri versus Illinois kind of situation. But the guy that he's fighting, Reese Newman, he just won the national title against Patrick Vega, who was 9-0 going into that fight. So Kendall, he's an amateur fighter, but this fight's going to be insane.
Yeah.
It's going to be insane. And that's what I'm saying, like the level, like these guys want to go to the UFC. They want to go to one championship. Like they're not doing this for fun. They want to actually like really make it in the sport. So it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah. I can't imagine a whole lot of people that just want to go. I mean, yes, there are people that just want to go out there and fight, but to actually train to go out there and fight and not take it serious to the point of wanting to win and keep winning. And there's only one local fighter that I even know of, and it's because my neighbor across the street, I invited him over to watch the UFC fight one night. And he's like, oh, my buddy from high school fights kickboxing and Muay Thai in St. Louis. And his name's like Bre Eckaet or Gigax.
Bre Eckaet?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
This guy.
Yeah, he just fought, I think, in the UK. He fought, it was like a huge fight.
Yeah, he went to school with my neighbor across the street. And
nice.
So I sent him a message. And I was like, hey, your buddy Clayton told me about you. I've been watching your clips. I just want to say good job, like crushing it. He's talented.
Good.
He kicks hard.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to.
Muay Thai, like Muay Thai kicker. Well, Muay Thai in general,
Muay Thai is brutal.
Yeah, I don't understand how. So I have damage to my shins just from playing football.
Oh, that fight's gonna be Muay Thai, by the way. Kendall versus.
It is.
Yeah, it's gonna be Muay Thai.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's gonna be insane.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, when you're my size and people are smaller than you, they'll dive at your legs to cut block you. And a lot of the time they're hitting their helmets right into your shins. So I have all this dead nerve tissue in my shins from that. And I can't imagine how much worse just getting kicked for an hour a day, every day, a week, for 8 weeks up to your fight. Then you got a fight where a guy's loading 80% into a kick instead of 40%.
Yeah. It's insane. Yeah, that's why.
These dudes are... It's like the Navy SEAL thing. It's like you're just a different level of human being to be willing to say, I'm going to go fight for a living.
Oh, it's insane.
It's awesome.
Yes.
That we still have gladiators in a way.
It's crazy.
It's by far the most entertaining sport on the planet if you can handle the violence.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing more exciting. Okay, last week when he didn't even knock him out, but when Costa hit that spinning heel on Whitaker, I jumped up. I was like, oh my gosh. Because it's just crazy that he got his foot up there. It was accurate on a spin and just... So the talent in general, I don't know. Sorry, I'm fangirling
And Costa
here.
isn't even really known for his kickboxing. He's known as more of a power puncher. But that's what I was saying. Like leading up to that fight, I was like, this is going to be technical, like really technical.
Yes.
And I think Costa's personality sometimes can make him very deceiving because he's like, oh, secret juice, like.
He's a
he kind of plays into that Neanderthal character a little bit.
And he's way too handsome.
Oh, yeah.
But you notice he's losing a little hair in the back? Did you see that? That was the biggest shock of me.
I don't know. I feel like
I thought he was looking a little thin up
even
top.
Without hair, I think Paulo
handsome.
Costa's still a very handsome guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but Paulo, it's deceiving because he is actually really technical and on the ground and standing up. So I think it's funny, we kind of forget that just because he does have kind of that goofy personality.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time we forget so this is one of those things that I notice a lot in other sports where I played in high school, I could probably still compete with those guys, or you see someone on TV playing professional football and they do these amazing athletic things and you think maybe I'm capable of it, but with fighting, I think everyone thinks themselves a little bit of a fighter till it's happening. So for them to keep their composure, to do all that stuff, it's a whole nother level of insane. And
oh yeah,
I don't know what has been happening. Well, I kind of have a general idea of what's been happening in some of the other larger but not UFC promotions, but the UFC's had a huge shakeup just with champions being dethroned in the last year.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's insane.
The three longest, well, who knows what's happening with the John Jones situation, but like Volk, Usman, and Adesanya all lose their title in the last 12 months. As far as like the long reigning men's holders, you also have Moreno and Figueiredo keep going back and forth, and now you have Pantoja there. Sterling loses. Every male champion lost their title in the last, I think, 14 months since about this time in maybe late 2022. Every male champion has been swapped out, and some of them multiple times. So
interesting.
There was a period in time where you would have these champions reign for a year or two, like a lot of the time. And with a guy like John, dude's been doing it for 13 years, near the top of his game.
Yeah.
He became a champion at 23, and he's never lost a fight since. Arguably lost one, but was it enough?
That's why I was so surprised by Volkanovski.
Well,
because I thought he was going to have a similar career to John Jones. I mean, obviously, John Jones, I guess his resume is a little more perfect just because he hasn't been TKO'd. But if you look at it, Alex Volkanovski was TKO'd in a welterweight fight. This guy was like a foot taller than him. And it looked like they weren't even in the same weight class by any means. And that was before, it was like in a boxing ring, like that was before the UFC. So it's like, it's kind of hard to count that against him, and then he loses to Islam Makhachev, who at the time was number one. I mean, that was a number one pound for pound fight.
Yeah, it was 1 and 2.
Yeah. So it was like, it shocked me just because I thought that Volkanovski could have, if he would have won, or maybe if he just wouldn't have taken the second fight with Islam, if he would have been able to somehow get himself back into the picture at lightweight, maybe fight somebody else and then fight for a title, if he would have done it maybe a little differently, then I think he could have had a shot at going down as the number one, guy.
Yeah.
I think, and it would have been really difficult for him to pull that off. But I think if there's anybody that could have done it, it was Volkanovski.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that a lot of people don't realize with a fighter with their career is sometimes, their career gets sabotaged because they took a fight they shouldn't have taken, or they didn't take enough time off, or whatever it is. So that happens a lot. But I also think people, they really don't understand how hard it is to do that, even at an amateur level.
I don't think people know how hard it is to just stay on your toes and do that for 5 minutes. I have a heavy bag right there, and I'll put on a YouTube video of, kickboxing where I've done it before, where it's just walking me through a simple punch progression, and you got to stay bouncing. My cardio isn't even good enough to do that right now and actually do a 5 minute or a 3 minute round for the sake of the exercise. It requires a tremendous amount of cardio. It requires a tremendous amount of toughness. And then on top of that, you got to have nerves of steel, because that guy's coming in there to beat the shit out of you.
Yep.
Or girl. The fact that anybody does it blows my mind. And it's a really impressive sport to watch, because super athletes. It makes you wonder, Sean Strickland said something a few months back where he said if America put as much effort into MMA as they do the other three major sports, baseball, basketball, football, he goes, we'd have the best MMA stars in the world. And it made me think, what would it be like with a guy like a LeBron James, someone's body like that, fighting at heavyweight? Because he's 260 to 270. He could cut in there. Mm-hmm. But someone at 6'8", who's that size, how does someone handle that?
Yeah.
And look, we're also talking about, in this scenario, someone who's been training their whole life for this, or at least years. We're not talking about just LeBron showing up, but we're seeing some really tremendous athletes.
Well, what's that guy's name? Robellis is his first name?
The new guy coming in?
Yeah.
The freak who
isn't his total fight time like
less than a
30
round?
seconds?
Yeah, it's less than 1 round of total it's less than 5 minutes of time. And it's all knockouts. Like
I think that's what happens. I think
TKOs.
that's exactly what you're talking about. I think that's it. That's the guy.
He looks like Yoel Romero went into a test tube and came out that guy. It's scary.
They're like, how can we make this better?
Yeah.
Like, what can we do? Well, let's make him taller.
What did they do for
there.
Yoel? They HGH for 30 years. Let's
Some
double
of these guys
the dose.
had to be made in a lab.
It's what it looks like. That's the thing that. Here's the other thing, and I'm gonna look at the camera for this one. What bothers me is when they're handsome and they're fighters, because it's like not only are you tough and you can kick my ass, but you're way better looking than me.
It happens.
Just a bad day to be me.
Yeah, especially a lot of them have like really good genetics too.
Like I look at some of these
Brazilians
guys.
and Cubans.
Yeah. Or dude, I'll look at a guy like Dreykus, and I'm like, dude, you are a handsome man. Why aren't you modeling? Why are you letting someone do that to your ears? They're broken. And I see these guys,
funny.
and I'm just like, all right, you're just going to fight for a living. But that's what I mean. Like, these guys, they chose the craziest career path possible, and it's for our enjoyment, and I'm very thankful for it. I will sit here and enjoy it and talk about it, and I will never say a bad thing about a fighter because, like, at the end of the day, I know I don't have what it takes to step in the ring with them. And this was the longest-winded place to get to say that I don't think the average person understands that even someone on the UFC roster, not a top 15, is still going to kick your ass.
Oh, 100%.
They're a way better fighter than you will ever be. You getting off the couch, Zach. Like,
yeah.
Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson would KO me or choke me out. And he walks around at 136 and he fights at 135. So he's not cutting weight. He would destroy me. And I'm 6'5", 280.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that. And you see it on these podcast guys. Like recently, Sneeko got the trash knocked out of him. Sean went a little hard.
Did you see that he's now complaining, saying that he has mental issues from it?
I saw a couple of things come out about different stuff with it, that like there's all the stuff about that individually, but apparently Sean was supposed to be in some event and now he's been banned from the event because Sneeko and some other influencer that were going to be at the event complained about it, and he was going to race.
MGK. You know
MGK,
what's funny about MGK is MGK tried to start a fight with Sam Tripoli too.
Really? Sam
Tripoli's a comedian, but he trains. Like, he trains jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He trains Krav Maga too. So like he's friends with Eddie Bravo.
Sam's not a big guy, but he could stout.
If MGK versus Sam Tripoli, I'm taking Sam Tripoli all day long.
MGK looks like a stick with a blanket over it.
But the reason why he, I guess, confronted him was because Sam did a joke about him or whatever, and he got offended, which that is so, like, I don't think people understand. Like, I go on my tangents about fighters, but I'm also, like, a big comedy fan. I'm actually probably, like, comedy I got into way before MMA.
Yeah.
So, like, comedy, like, I love comedians. Like, comedians are awesome. So when I see people, like, think it's okay to charge, like Will Smith and Chris Rock, that whole thing. Like, if we think, like, if we start to normalize that, that's dangerous.
Very dangerous.
We cannot do that. Because some of these comedians know how to fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because they're all friends with Rogan. Rogan's got them all rolling.
Exactly. Yeah, Rogan's getting them all in jiu-jitsu.
Teach you how to tear someone's meniscus in half.
He's teaching them spinning back kicks.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And in all reality, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to learn how to fight.
Yeah, I guess getting back to what I was saying is, it seems like MGK is like, I think he might be the one starting it.
Does he make music still?
I guess.
Is this his new career, just being in people's headlines for...
I don't know. And I don't know what the whole confrontation was between him and Sean. I have no idea. and Sean doesn't seem like, like he seems
not
like
the
a
most
very
likable.
confrontational person.
Yeah.
Like if you look at him the wrong way, like, he's probably going to say something to you, but
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's
America's sweetheart.
Yeah, it's like, what is this guy doing? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I didn't know that they had beef. This is, like I said, I don't spend a whole lot of time on the internet, but like I saw this online that Sean's got beef with Sneeko and MGK, and I'm like, what's going on now?
The Sneeko thing was just stupid.
Did that start because of Mushimi? Did the whole Sneeko fighting Sterling Strickland? Because I thought it all started that Mushimi.
Mikey posted a video after Sneeko. What he did first was he was like calling Mikey a nerd.
Yeah.
And Mikey's a jiu-jitsu champion.
But he's amazing.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of these guys are now. Like they stay home and they play video games, but they could kick your ass. Like seriously. And so it's very deceiving, and a lot of them, they were bullied. Yeah. So that's why they got into martial arts in the first place. Like Joe Rogan got bullied. That's why he got into martial arts. So a lot of times that's why. And that's why I think Mikey said something about it, because he was probably bullied when he was younger. And so he's like, no, you're not going to freaking bully me. Like, why don't you come fight me? So he invited him basically to fight him. And then Sneeko was like, oh, I'll fight you if you get me a conversation with Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm like, what? I don't know. The whole thing was so insane.
Streamers.
Yeah. But he like said some things about Mikey, but then he said he was just joking and tried to backpedal. And then I guess the Sean Strickland thing happened. I don't know how that came about.
I don't know. It's like he was looking for someone. He's like, I gotta fight someone now.
Yeah,
Sean Strickland.
Yeah, why would you like? I would have much rather fought somebody that's closer to your size. Like Sean Strickland's not a small guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Sneeko's not small either, but he's not trained.
Yeah.
So it's a little different.
These guys. That's the other thing. For the casual fan, and like, look, I would say I'm casual plus. I pay attention, but for the most part, I'm not watching every single fight.
Yeah.
I'm not diving into the character, like the people more than the character they present to me.
Sure.
So, but I like to pay attention. I like to follow up and read news articles about it. So like that's the plus part.
Sure.
And I think a lot of the time we see this, 145, 155, 165. Dude, the last fight for Chandler, on fight day, he was 184 pounds, fighting at 155. These aren't small guys.
No.
They are smaller, but they're very big men.
Yeah.
Even the smaller ones are still 160-pound men. You go grab a 160-pound bench press and imagine that thing swinging at you. Like, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt bad. And do you think they should do more weight classes in MMA? And if so, where do they even add them? Because like that 155 to 175 is a huge jump, or 170.
Yeah.
Do you move it to 175 and put in a 165? Do you add in something between light heavyweight and heavyweight?
Yeah,
do you uncap heavyweight?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, because it's like I feel
do
like
they even need more though?
I don't know. I don't know if they do, because the thing is, then we're going to have to rework the roster, and that might take some time to really figure that out. Because I feel like 185, for example, there's a lot of guys at 185 that are killing themselves to make 185 because they don't want to fight at 205. There's a lot of guys that are ginormous fighting at 185. Like Pajeda.
Yeah, it's stupid he even fought there at
that's
all.
crazy that he fought it. He looks exactly the same at 205. Why does he look exactly the same?
I don't know.
I'm convinced he could fight at heavyweight and actually probably do well. I'm convinced.
It'd be interesting. I mean,
I know that sounds crazy. It's a hot take, but
I mean, dude, the way the division looks right now with
just keep him away from Curtis Blades and he'll be fine. Keep him away from Almeida. Keep him away from the grapplers. But against somebody like Volkov or something, like that's an interesting fight. Like,
yeah. The interesting thing with the weight jumps for these people sometimes, like I personally don't like. I have 2 wins and I'm now going to go up and try to fight the next division. That's just my thought as the Casual Plus fan, because I like to see people dominate their division. I like to see people do well at it. And
like Volkanovski did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could have gone up before Islam was there and could have fought and probably could have won that division. I don't know. Charles would have been rough because he's so long.
Yeah, Charles is so good too. On the
yeah.
feet and on the
That's
ground.
what started this whole thing, though. You get a cut on your eyebrow and he misses a fight. And yeah, anyways, all that to say, that when we're looking at this whole thing, these fighters, they're going up in weight, they're going down in weight. And when a guy like Volkanovski goes up, yes, he did weigh over 200 pounds at one time when he was playing rugby, but his frame is currently adjusted, probably walks around 160,
I think
maybe
he walks
155.
around like 180 something.
Does he walk around? No, he doesn't. Okay, that's ridiculous if he's cutting 50.
He's cutting weight even to make 155, yeah.
That's crazy. Well, what I was going to say is,
and that could be a huge factor with the fight with Topuria.
Yeah, like
when you think about it, with the weight cut.
He did look like he was moving a little slow, but I thought it was just those brutal leg kicks that he took in the first round. He took so many low kicks and he wasn't checking them well in the first round.
I've never really seen Volkanovski take leg kicks like that either.
No, his leg looks slow.
He's usually the one throwing the leg kicks.
Exactly. And that's what really threw me off in that fight. People have caught Topuria before, like in that people talk all about that Jai knockout because the dude looked dead.
Yeah.
But earlier in that fight, Jai almost knocked him out. If I remember correctly, he catches him with a kick and puts him on the mat. It's a knockdown. All I'm saying is Topuria is the champion right now, but any one of these guys can land that kick. Any one of these guys could end someone's career. Like, it happens that fast in MMA.
Topuria's boxing technique is insane.
He's quick.
He's really good. He's got really fast hands, but he's also got really good combinations.
And his feet are good.
Yes, very good footwork.
He sets up well.
Yeah, I think that and I've been really hoping that this would happen. I think we're gonna see more good boxers in the UFC, because as the sport continues to evolve, that's one thing I've noticed, and being in my gym too has kind of helped me realize this, is that there is starting to be more of a focus on boxing. Like at my gym, we have boxing classes like 4 or 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an MMA gym. You know, like you would have thought, it's like some people joke around like this should be ES stand up now, because all we do is stand up. And we do a lot of grappling there too. I haven't participated in the grappling yet because I'm focusing on striking right now. Yeah. But it does kind of give me, I guess, a little bit of insight into, where the direction things are going with gyms. Because keep in mind, this is a newer gym. So I think our gym opened during COVID, if I'm not mistaken, or around that time. Maybe a little bit before COVID. I can't exactly remember because I wasn't there when it opened. But so now we're starting to see more gyms kind of training fighters as a complete fighter, where they're learning boxing, they're learning Muay Thai, they're learning kickboxing, they're learning jiu-jitsu, they're learning wrestling. Like, we have a class for every single thing. So, and then of course they're cross-training too. And that's something that I'm really excited to see happening in St. Louis, is fighters are cross-training at different gyms. Like, there's fighters that train at our gym and they train at Wolves Den. And that's where, Sean Woodson trains. He's in the UFC. So we're seeing more of that. We're seeing more collaboration now, which I think is really going to help us grow, because then we're learning different technique from different fighters, and that's hard to do sometimes because a lot of the fighters are fighting each other. It's like you train with somebody and then 2 weeks later you're training with them, or you fight somebody and 2 weeks later you're training with them. Yeah. So it's like kind of a weird thing. But I feel like that's starting to kind of change a little bit in which is cool.
Mm.
But kind of getting back to what I was saying is like, you know, the training now is so much more advanced. Like, man, I try to give my coach as much credit as I can a lot of times, just because like I see so much of, like, I watch a lot of fights and I watch a lot of not only fights, but I watch a lot of like fighters hitting pads and fighters training and coaching, and I watch a lot of that stuff too, like the behind the scenes stuff. And my coach really has figured out how to teach like textbook technique. Like that's kind of how I would describe it. Like and it's so much more difficult. Like because I've taken boxing classes before. I've sparred in boxing before. So I'm like, why is this so hard? Like, I've done this before. I've been punched in the face. I'm like, why is it so hard? And it's like, because he's really like drilling it on our heads, like, learn the freaking technique. Like, you're not going to go out there and fight if you don't learn the technique. Like, you need to learn this. Whether or not you use it, okay, cool. That's up to you when you get in the cage. But you're going to learn the technique and you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like that too is part of why I have progressed a lot since I've been training there, because I don't ever question anything that he says, because I know, like, I've seen stuff that he's taught in other like fights that I've watched, and I'm like, oh, I learned that in class. That works. That, like, so it's hard for me to even question anything that he says, because I'm like, oh, you actually really do know what you're doing. Oh my God. And it's a new gym. So, you know, he doesn't have like, I guess that, I mean, in St. Louis, he's pretty well known, but like, as far as like, he's not Eric Nixick. He's not, you know, one of these big coaches yet.
Yeah.
But I think at some point we'll probably get there. And that's cool. Think at some point, St. Louis in general, I think will be more known for combat sports because of everything that we're doing right now, and just the growth that I've seen even in the past year is insane. Yeah. More people are creating content for their gyms now. More people are like starting podcasts and stuff like that and trying to get the exposure out there, which I think is really cool. And then also, like I said, like the cross training and stuff like that. But kind of getting back to what I was saying earlier, with like, people really have no idea what it's like to be a fighter and to train like a fighter. I think even if people took like one boxing or kickboxing class, I think they would have a much different perspective. Like, even forget about sparring, forget about getting punched in the face. I don't think you need to do that really to understand it. I think that would be a little ridiculous to say that. But I do think that if people took one class or just spend a day at an MMA gym, like, I think they would have a much different perspective on the sport if they saw what goes on in the training room, and if they experienced even just hitting pads for an hour, holding pads is hard. Like, I don't think people understand how hard it is to actually like hold pads for somebody. Like, and that was something that I kind of had to learn too when I started training at my gym. But really, like, what I want to do at some point is like, I started off training boxing because I'm familiar with boxing. I wouldn't say like I'm amazing, but like I know some basics.
I've seen you throw punches on your bag. You hit well. You square up well.
I mean, I hit hard, I guess. Like, I've figured out the technique, like how to hit a lot harder than I used to. I've come a long way. I'll say that. I've definitely progressed quite a bit. But I've sparred enough to like kind of have a feel for it. So I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to get back into boxing. I'm not going to, you know, get too far out of my comfort zone, but I'm like, this time I'm really going to work on defense. Like, I'm really going to learn defense, because that was, to me, I felt like my biggest flaw before was my defense, and my footwork just wasn't there. I mean, it was okay. It was good enough for me to like survive, but you know, it could have been a lot better. So that's one thing I've really worked on. And then I'm learning kickboxing now. And kickboxing, when you go to a cardio kickboxing class, because I've done those before. I've done a few cardio kickboxing classes. And when you do that versus learning an actual technique of kickboxing are two completely different things.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. Like, especially when I'm at the point where like my body does not cooperate the same way that it used to.
Yeah.
My joints are pretty much hurting all the time. And so I gotta, be a little bit more careful than I probably used to. But I don't think people understand how hard it is just to even throw a kick, and then also to keep up with the cardio at the same time and not get tired. And man, it's hard, but I think that this is either going to do one of two things for me. It's going to prove to me that I don't have what it takes to be a fighter. Like it's going to prove that, or I, at some point, if I feel like I'm like comfortable enough, would like to compete at some point. Yeah. So I don't know yet for sure. But that's, like I said, I'm either going to figure out one of two things. Like, I can't do this.
Yeah.
This is too hard. And which will give me a lot more respect for the fighters and will help me. Either way, I think it will make me better at broadcasting and journalism. I think it will make me better and have a much better. I already do have a much bigger appreciation for the sport just from the training that I've done.
Yeah.
So far. So I don't know. And then I haven't even touched grappling yet. So that's like,
I was going to ask you that if you'd mess with it at all.
No, because I want to build a strong base with stand-up first.
Yep.
Before I try to do too much at once, because I feel like that's just like asking for injuries. And
yeah, I mean, if you're training 3 different sports at the same time, that's rough. Boxing and kickboxing are also 2 completely different things. Because when you have 4 limbs to attack with instead of 2, you defend and attack differently. You throw punches differently. You plant your feet differently.
100%.
And
that's what I'm learning. It is a much different game. And I feel so much more confident in my boxing now because I've realized like how bad I am at kickboxing. And I'm like, man, this is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think that's good. I think it's good to have experiences in life that humble you too. Because then you're like, oh, I'm not, I'm not shit. Like I need to step it up. So we'll see. That's a beautiful
thing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, I am really excited to learn grappling, though. Yeah. I'm trying to be patient, like I said, and not do too many things at once. Because I do also have so much other stuff going on in my life and trying to build a career in journalism and as an analyst and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to overload myself, but I do think they tie into each other, like I said, and I do think that learning grappling in not only learning jiu-jitsu but also learning wrestling, I think that will really help me with whenever I decide to start doing commentary.
Oh yeah.
I think that will really help me a lot.
Yeah. For me, that what you're talking about, like that fight, is me finally growing a pair and going and doing a walk-in stand-up night and like trying it. And that's where
that takes a lot of courage.
That's, to me though, like I want to talk to people for a living. So if I don't have enough stones to get up in front of some strangers and say some stupid shit, I'm not going to do well talking in front of lots of people because I'm going to say dumb stuff.
Yeah.
So I got to learn how to do that. And I would love to try it sometime. But it's one of those things that I know it's going to be one of those. I will know very quickly if I have what it takes to do this. I don't mind talking in front of people. But that's a different thing.
Like I talk about the things fighters deal with, and then I think about comedians too. And I know they're not getting punched in the face, so it's a little different. But what it does to you mentally is insane. Like just imagine bombing multiple times in a week. Because that's normal for a comedian. That's pretty normal.
Or like imagine
Like a
you're
Friday night.
the number one comedian in the world and then you just bomb one night. Like you're the best of the best and you still could deliver an absolute goose egg one night.
Yeah. A lot of people say the only comedian that's never really bombed is Dave Chappelle. That's what a lot of people say.
He always finds a way to put that act together. There's been a few times where I've listened to his specials where I'm like, all right, Dave, where are you going with this?
And then it just bam.
But he rapes and he saves. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
That Cosby joke was an hour long.
Yeah.
That's the greatest joke of all time. By the way, Tim Dillon, when he came to town, was by far the funniest show I've ever seen in my life.
I was going to ask you about that because I'm a huge Tim Dillon fan.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I had seen, we went and saw Shane Gillis like 3 weeks before, and he had Cam Patterson open up for him and some other guy. That's how good he was. I don't remember his name. Sorry, guy. You're not going to be watching this anyway,
I love
so
Shane Gillis. He keeps posting on Facebook his grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
I'm making them at night.
Making them at night. I love it.
Brilliant.
But then, what's her face? The local chick, not Nikki Glazer. No, it was Nikki Glazer. Nikki Glazer showed up. St. Louis. Yeah, she opened for Tim, along with another guy who was really funny. And I'm sorry, I don't remember his name. He looks like an accountant. But dude, he had this joke that I don't necessarily even want to try to do, but it's a joke about basically like a proud parent, but a woke proud parent being proud of like the new genitals they bought for their kid and wanting to show off their kid's genitals to everybody. Like, hey, come over here and take a look at my kid's dick. Look I spent $30,000 on that dick. Like, and he just takes it to the next absurd and the next absurd. And I couldn't breathe. It was as funny as that special that Louis did in 2018, right before he got caught touching himself in front of people, or not caught, but outed for doing it. But top 5 specials I've ever heard of all time.
Oh, Louis C.K. before all that went down, he was like number 1.
His new special's still pretty funny though. The one that
he's
just
still
came out like
still
a month
hilarious.
ago.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the fact that he's hilarious.
He's one of my bucket list guys. Like, I have to see him before I die.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Do you have like a list of maybe 2 or 3 comedians that you're like, if I didn't see any comedians but these 2 or 3, I'd be happy?
Do they have to be alive?
No, for the sake of this game, we'll say that they don't.
Norm Macdonald is number 1. My favorite comedian of all time.
Didn't even think about old Normie.
Yeah. Yeah. Norm is definitely my favorite.
I love his delivery.
Oh my God. He's just I love when he starts laughing during his joke. That's when you know it's about to be just an absolute like banger of a joke if he starts laughing.
Yeah, and the other thing with him is you don't know if it's going to be a joke or it's just going to end.
You have no idea.
Yeah, so I went to the doctor the other day and he raped me. What?
You're like, what?
That's the joke. What, Norm? That's it.
Norm is incredible. Man, I wish I would have seen him before he died. That's why I think it's so much more like, man, I wish I would have seen that. And same with Robin Williams too. Like, I wish I would have seen Robin Williams.
He'd have been crazy.
That would have been insane. But somebody that's alive, I'm trying to think. I mean, I still haven't seen Theo, and I saw he's coming to the Fox, so I'm going to have to figure out.
You're going to have to hold that one off till you're ready to get married, so you can just go ahead and knock out both those things at the same time. Theo, I'm at your show. Let's go ahead and tie the knot.
It's hilarious. It's funny because, I never, really even meant it in that way when I posted that. I'm just like, dude, Theo is my favorite comedian. Yeah. Then everybody started this whole thing of like, oh, Theo's your future husband. And Theo, but I just kind of went with it because I'm like, oh, this is pretty funny.
Yeah.
But Theo is, Theo's really good on podcasts and his stand-up is good. And some people don't like his stand-up. I personally think it's hilarious.
I find it funny.
I think there's little things about it that I appreciate. But Theo is I don't know, I almost really want to see him in a movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that he's probably more like he's probably better off just focusing on his podcast and focusing on his own stuff, like most likely, because he doesn't seem to me like the person that wants to do the Hollywood bullshit.
Yeah.
But selfishly, I just want to see it because I think it would be insane. Like, I think it would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, imagine him in like a movie with like Will Ferrell or something, you know, like, or so, you know, something like
Let's
that.
get Sandler in there too.
Yeah, like
I love Sandler.
I don't know. Like, it would just be hilarious. Or, you know, they could kind of gather a couple of the comedians like in that circle, I guess you could say, and make a movie with them, similar to like, you know how, well, you mentioned Sandler, and like Judd Apatow makes movies with basically the same people in them every time.
Yeah.
Like, I think it would be cool to see that, and they like self-produce it. Like, that would be awesome if they like were able to do it without Hollywood and just like independently do it.
They definitely have the resources amongst that group of people. Like, I'm visualizing all the names in my head, and I'm looking at them.
I mean, that could be like the next Clerks.
I mean, Bert just made a whole movie about a joke. One joke.
Yeah.
The Machine.
I haven't watched it.
I didn't watch it either.
I'm not a big Bert Kreischer fan.
I went and saw his stand-up. Bert is a great storyteller, and he's a very good character.
Oh, yeah. 100%. He has his moments, for sure.
And he has some very funny stories, but like...
Him and Tom together is really funny, too.
That's a great podcast. But like Theo, for example, he does that whole bit about when he got sober from cocaine. That whole story is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then there's that clip going around right now of him saying, sometimes I'll just pick a snail up and carry him 4 or 5 feet, save him a few years. And he'll say something like that. And you're just like, how did you come up with that? And why is it so funny and kind of true? Like you're imagining this snail like saying thank you to Theo for the trip. He lives in his own little world, and it's beautiful. And the world needs more people.
He's very authentic, and he says things that are so obvious, but he says it in a way that's like, it's like an art.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like he says things that we're all thinking, we've all thought before, but we're like, yeah, I get that, but wait, what? Like, you know, it seems so weird, but it's also like, but he's not. He's pointing out very obvious things in a funny Theo way. But
that's comedy. He's just got so many weird descriptions that make it so him.
Yeah.
I wonder how many of the stories that he has are real and how much of it is, because I've heard people say that Theo is Theo, like that's him. It's not a character.
No.
And everyone who asks me, you know, hey, do you think that, I've had people, Megan literally asked me the other day if I thought Theo, if it was a character, and he's really like that. And I go, no, I think that's just him.
Yeah.
I think that's growing up in Louisiana.
I think so too. Yeah, I just was on the phone with Sam Primo. He's from Lafayette, so he's not too far away from Theo, and he just had Alan Juban on his show.
Wow!
So he just started his podcast.
Good for him.
Yeah, yeah.
Is he calling it Inner Animal, or is he calling it Sam Primo Podcast?
I don't know what he's calling it. I'll have to check. But I don't think he's released the episode yet. But yeah, he's kind of got a little bit of that personality too. Like I've noticed.
Southern Bayou
just
boys.
Hilarious, just so funny, and boys. Such a like friendly person. Like I've never talked to Sam and like not been in a good mood. Like that dude is just a vibe. Like he's cool. Like I feel like that's just the vibe down there. You know, I think that they have a certain personality of like a really very authentic personality too. Like they're very real.
Yeah.
And just, you know, they just want to be in a good mood.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like that's Theo's way of sometimes probably how he deals with his depression and stuff, because he's been very open about that. Yeah. Like he takes antidepressants and he struggled with that for a long time. And I feel like that's sometimes how I deal with mine too, is like making people laugh and like putting people in a good mood. Like sometimes that is my way almost of like, okay, now I'm in a good mood,
Yeah.
like, and that was one thing that I really liked about Theo when I first got into his podcast and his stand up and all that, was I was like, this is a very real person. And I think, and there's of course going to be people that don't like Theo, but at least they don't like Theo and he's being real, I think that, and when you listen to a lot of his like solo podcasts, I feel like that's where you get like a lot of his real personality. Because he talks a lot about like his struggle with addiction and depression and alcohol and stuff like that. But I feel like there is so much fakeness in the world right now that's why when people are fans of people like Theo, they're like huge fans, because we crave that authenticity and we crave people who are just willing to be themselves and not hide behind some kind of a persona. And I know, like, even me, I say things all the time that people are like, what are you talking about? Like, you're being ridiculous. Yeah. And I sometimes, even when I'm talking about MMA, like, can be a little polarizing, like, especially recently. Some people just don't like what I'm saying. But I'm being me, and I'm saying what I really do think. And I feel like we really do need more of that in the world, because, and people will comment on stuff, and I think that's why so many I don't think people realize they're doing it a lot of times. I don't think people realize how fake they are being, and it's because they're just trying to avoid controversy. They're trying to avoid somebody saying something about them, or they're trying to please people. Which in a way is a nice thing to do, you don't want to piss people off. You don't want people to be, think you're an asshole, whatever. But at the same time, I think a lot of people would be like, I think a lot of people would benefit from just being themselves and from not worrying about, I think way too many people worry about what other people think. And that's why, they're not doing podcasts. That's why they're not being seen. That's why people don't know who they are. But if they were, then, they could be huge.
Yeah.
I think the same thing with a lot of fighters too. Like, I feel like a lot of them have really awesome personalities, but they don't show them. And then, so nobody knows who they are. But if they did, they'd be like, oh, this guy's awesome. And there'd be a handful of people that are like, oh, I don't like that guy. But that's just life. Yeah. That's how it is. There's a lot of people that don't like me, and I don't care, because it's been that way my whole life. It doesn't matter if I'm on a podcast or if I'm just going to the store or if I'm going to school or going to work. There's going to be people that don't like me no matter what. So, yeah, it's very much blown up when it's on the internet. It feels like more of it is coming at you. When you do things like this and when you do have a public platform, it feels like more people hate you. But once you get used to it, then you're kind of like, okay, this is just like normal life. And the people that do like you, a lot of times don't say anything.
Yeah.
They don't even, they don't even like any of your content. They don't message you. They don't comment on anything, but they like you.
Because they're probably not spending time on social media.
Exactly.
Because they're I don't know. One of the big reasons I'm getting rid of my phone and starting over is every time I get a new iPhone, at some point, even if I choose to start it from fresh, it always reloads all of its apps back on it. So I'm switching completely to Android because I don't want social media on my phone. I don't want any of that stuff on it. I want a phone that can film stuff. I can make my phone calls. I can do my work on it. But I have to have that out, because I will get to a really unhealthy place when I look at people, because I'll create a whole narrative in my head. And it's part of like my ADHD will take me and just blow a situation out completely very, very quickly. So it'll see something and it'll make it a bigger thing in my head. Yeah. Or I'll start dwelling on stuff that is completely insignificant. And what I've learned is I will always use that as an easy way out, because I'll go on there and find what whatever I'm looking for. I will find somebody that's doing worse than me so that I can feel better, or I can find somebody who's doing better than me so I can talk shit about them and be like, they don't deserve that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm only in control of me and what I do, and I screw up all the time. I had a huge screw up today, and just like embarrassing stuff that I still do, and I look at myself and go like, why can't you figure it out? Because it seems like everyone's got it all together. Everyone's figured it out, but I don't know. I do like what you were saying with just the way that people speak to you, speak about you online, and it seems so much bigger. And like a lot of people don't even really know anything about you. They just see woman talking subject that, like, if we're just being honest, like statistically, most women aren't watching UFC.
Yeah. 100%.
Most, like, and I just mean 51% or more of women couldn't name 5 UFC fighters.
Right.
All that to say, like, people don't like change. They don't like different. They don't like that. And I don't understand why, because change is good, but change can be bad. But like, it's not like it's not like RuPaul's up there doing UFC commentary. It's a woman.
Yeah.
It's not someone making a mockery of the sport.
Right.
And I think that that's where people take it, is they do what I do and they blow it up to this whole situation in their head of like, women are taking over and the UFC is just going to get feminized and Taylor Swift's going to be at fucking UFC fights and I don't want to see it. And they blow it up and it's like, I got to ruin this girl's career right now.
Yep. 100%.
And
yeah, people try to discredit me all the time. In some people, maybe they just don't like me, and that's fine. But a lot of people, I think, just assume a lot of things about me when they see me because I'm female and because, you know, I'm not 50 years old. Like, you know, I'm young, I'm blonde. Like, they're going to assume that I'm dumb, you know, immediately. And I love the Dolly Parton song, Dumb Blonde, because
Dolly's the best.
And I love her quote. She said, what did she say? She said, everybody calls me a dumb blonde or whatever. And I'm paraphrasing this, so it's not exact. But she said, I know I'm not blonde and I know I'm not dumb. And I dye my hair blonde. So technically I'm not blonde. More of like a dirty blonde. But but anyways, getting back to what I was saying is, people assume a lot of things about me, but they don't realize all the work that I do, and they don't realize I train, you know, as much as I possibly can. And sometimes that's only one day a week, but I train as much as I possibly can. And a lot of these MMA media people are not really training that much, if at all.
Let me ask you something. On average, how many, let's say, minutes or hours of content do you think you put out there on YouTube? Let's just say YouTube. How much? An hour's worth a week, 2 hours a week, 3 hours?
At least 2 usually.
Okay. So how much time do you think you actually put in to put 2 hours? If you were to add it all up, 30, 40 hours? Like, is it 10, 20 hours per hour?
I've gotten a lot faster.
And I don't mean just time. Sorry. Camera thing not working right. I don't mean just time like recording and editing, but I mean like researching and watching videos, like 40 hours a week.
At least.
Exactly.
You know.
So it's a full-time job for you.
And I work too, because that doesn't pay my bills yet. So.
Yeah.
Not yet. It takes a long time. That's another thing people don't realize, is it takes a long time to get to the point where, because like a lot of people think just because you're a journalist means like you're making money. No, you do a lot of that for free. Like, they don't even pay for your travel a lot of times to do events and stuff like that. So, you know, like I did interviews. I didn't get paid for any of that, and I didn't expect to, you know, so it's not like I'm sitting here complaining that I didn't get paid, but that's why I'm like, okay, you know, I think I should be paid for this at some point, maybe not right this second. And I mean, I guess I get paid a little bit. I have a sponsor on one of my podcasts, and I've had a couple sponsors. So it's like I get, money here and there and stuff like that. But
I can set you up with Bouncy Balls. They're great. Great sponsor.
But it's like, so I still have to support myself a little bit, and so I think people don't realize all the time that I do put into it. And so that's why when I first started to get like the hate comments and all that, I got really mad because I know how much, and I know fighters have this same mentality too, because they know how hard they work. They know the hours that they put into everything. And so they're like, man, you're going to sit here and trash everything that I'm doing when I've spent hours upon hours. And a lot of it I'm doing for free. I'm not even making money from this. So it's like, and I think too, a lot of people don't realize what I actually am doing, because I've created a platform to give amateur and pro MMA fighters an opportunity to basically, I mean, it's giving them media training a little bit, because if they go to the UFC, they're going to have to do media. There's no way around that. Like, you have to do media when you're in the UFC, or even before you get to the UFC. A lot of times you're doing media. So I'm giving them a little bit of media training, but also giving them exposure. So, I feel like that's one thing that gives me a lot of fulfillment too, is knowing that I am able to help fighters early in their career. And, I could go ahead and try to message every UFC fighter and try to get the top, whatever people on. But to me, that's just not the way that I want to do it. And, people are like, oh, you should get this fighter on. You should get this fighter on. I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Call them for me.
But
send me their number.
But at the same time, the number one criteria for me for having someone on is, if it's a fighter, do I think they have potential? Do I think that this is somebody who is training really hard, putting the work in, taking it seriously? If they check those boxes, I don't care if they have one fight. I want to talk to them. I want to learn more about them. I want to learn their story. I want to learn how they started. And so I'm genuinely curious about their journey. And I don't necessarily care if it is super entertaining or if it gets the most views. That's not really what I'm concerned about. Because to me, like, okay, down the road, let's say they do make it to the UFC. Well, then we've documented like a lot of their journey. And that's pretty cool. Like, to have that, if later on they're a UFC champion and they're like, oh, remember this interview you did like 5 years ago where you talked about how you started and, you didn't have any money and you were working a full-time job and all this stuff. Because that's a lot of times their story.
Yeah.
They're working full-time and fighting on top of it, which is insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. So I feel like that's really cool that I get to do that. And it's also helping the local community. It's helping, like I said, it's helping St. Louis get more exposure doing stuff like this.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And that's why it's not really super important to me, like the analytics on that. And that's why I have them separated. That's why I have one channel for that. And then I have another channel for when I'm doing like UFC breakdowns and stuff like that. Because I'm not really worried about the analytics on that. Obviously I want to get the fighters as much exposure as possible, which is why I do a lot of the clips and I put those on Instagram and Facebook and all that, because that really does get the most exposure.
Yeah.
By far.
I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, it takes time, and that's why I kind of do it the way that I do it. I used to do like more clips, like I would post them all the time. And I was just really trying to learn how to edit really at the end of the day. So now that I kind of have the editing side figured out, now I don't do as many, but I really put a lot more energy into each one that I do to really try to like tell a story with it. Cause it's like, most of these people aren't going to watch the whole interview. So it's like, how can I try to capture as much of their story as possible in a 30-second or 1 minute video? And to me, that's like the best way to do it. is using editing as a tool to tell their story in as short of a clip as I possibly can. So that's one thing that I've really been working on, and that really does give me a lot of fulfillment, because then it's like, well, you know, at some point when I do start getting those big interviews, and when I do start talking to, you know, let's say I do end up getting an interview with like a Volkanovski or somebody like that, like I can tell their story in a so much better way once I've kind of had experience doing this. And I think that'll be really cool. You know, I think when I get to that point will be really awesome.
Is that the goal long term? Like, would you rather be on the media side of things than the fighter side of things in the long term?
I think I really do see myself doing a similar thing to like what Rogan has done, where I'm kind of a little bit of both.
Okay.
You know, like he's talking to fighters in a conversational way more than an interview kind of way, and that's how I've done it so far, and that's how I want to continue doing it. You know, I don't want to do a 20-minute, and I'll do media obviously in the meantime, but I don't want to do a bunch of 15-minute, 20-minute interviews. Like I want to have real conversations. And kind of bring out more of the human side of the fighters. And so I think, and that's why I never have really cared about getting the biggest names on, or like, and it's cool. Obviously, like when I got to interview Joe Pyfer, that was really cool.
Like 3 weeks after
Hector
Rogan.
Lombard, you know, like it's been really cool, but I really do like, you know, I guess, and it doesn't happen every single time. Like not every interview is like this, but a lot of times we're having like real conversations. And that's what I like. I like having real conversations with people. I don't want to just interview them to check a bunch of boxes. And it's like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, there's already enough MMA media people doing that. So I feel like, yeah, I do want to do commentary. And I think long term, I would like to be an analyst. I think that's long term. And I don't know if I'm going to end up doing that just on YouTube like I'm doing now, because you can make a career doing that.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if that's where I'll end up, or if I'll end up like working for the UFC, which that would be really cool too. So it's like, I don't know, or I could do both. You know, I don't know. Because Rogan has figured out a way to do both, basically.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you could be
like,
the next Megan O'Leary out there.
Yeah, and I would love to do that. I would love to interview fighters, kind of like how she does.
She's done analyst stuff, right? Has
I
she been? No, not her. Who's
so.
the
Laura
other?
Senko has.
Yes, she did it with Cormier and Anik one night, right?
Yeah, she's done commentary. Yeah,
and
she's
she was
actually
good.
really good at it.
She was really good,
very good at it.
And
she's
like,
fought before too. She trains.
Yeah, like and look, this isn't even from like a male perspective, but like it was a little different hearing a female's voice throughout the fights. I can remember that, but once you get used to the way that she talks and her cadence and her like her knowledge, you're like, okay,
yeah,
just another person.
Exactly.
It's just like, it's no different than when I turn it on and think it's going to be Rogan, Cormier, and Anik, and it's, you know, what's his face, redheaded guy. I
think that's why I actually would be good at it, because I don't have a super feminine voice.
You have a good voice.
Like, it's not like, oh my God, you know, like that. I feel like, you know, I can understand sometimes why people might not. It's not that
I don't think Mousy would work well in
it would just be a big adjustment.
It'd be tough.
It'd be a big adjustment for people, because it is a male dominated sport. That's the thing. You know, if I was doing commentary for cheerleading or something, then that would probably work, you know, but for MMA, maybe not as much.
They'd probably still put some guy out there like me for cheerleading. Coming up next, Century High School.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I think it would be really cool to have a role like that, or even working the desk as an analyst, like post-fight or pre-fight, I think would be really cool. Like breaking down, and that's something I've really been working on, and that's why I've been doing a lot of deep dives. When there's like a big pay-per-view, I'll kind of do a deep dive on it and I'll look at all the stats. I'll watch film. I'll look at a lot of different things. And then I'll kind of not really predict who I think will win the fight, but predict what I think will happen in the fight. That's what I've been trying to get better at doing. And so that's why I'm doing it, because that's eventually what I want to do.
Yeah.
And whether, like I said, whether I'm doing it the way I'm doing it now and just end up making a career off of YouTube, or if I end up going to potentially like the UFC, or I don't know, even like one championship or PFL or something like that would be cool. But I do think the UFC at the end of the day would be like the coolest.
Yeah.
Like that's the goal for sure. Like,
yeah.
Besides doing it, I think doing it independently actually would probably be the best way to do it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's much that could compare to sitting next to John Anik and Daniel Cormier and doing commentary, or even if Joe Rogan was in there. I don't think there's much that could compare to that in calling a pay-per-view. I mean, that's gotta be...
That's Rushmore.
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that might take 20 years for me to get to that point, you know? But I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, like, I mean, really, this is where my brain breaks me, and it's because the way I view time, and I just look at time as this endless crushing mechanism that bulldozes everything in the end. And that's why it sucks, because no matter if you're ready or not, time's going to keep moving.
100%,
and,
yeah.
You know, for someone like you're 28, you got plenty of time. Like,
but I don't.
But like in all reality, like you do, because it's not, unless UFC goes away. But what I mean by that is whether this takes you 5 years or 10 years, you're still in a good place.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to take you that long if you're able to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going at a crazy pace right now.
Yeah,
I will
and
say.
Pace of play might be rough for you, but if it's not triggering your issues as frequently as your old job, and you're going, that's a pretty good sign that this is not causing you a lot of stress.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing.
That's the thing. I think
like
once I get to the point where I'm able to just focus on this, and, you know, obviously still training and doing all that, which I actually would like to put more time into that too. But if I can get to the point where, like, I can at least make enough money off of, you know, doing what I'm doing, to support myself, where I don't have to work and I don't have to worry about that, then I think I will be in a really good place. I don't think I need to necessarily, you know, get rich or anything to get to that point. I don't think I don't think it needs to be a huge number of what I'm making for me to feel really good about it.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why I kind of do have imposter syndrome a little bit, because I'm like, man, I don't feel like I'm doing that well because I'm not really bringing in that much money, you know, with what I'm doing. But then I see, okay, well, if I continue doing this for the next year or two, that could be a very different picture within the next year or two, because it usually does take some time. And that's why I haven't been super worried about it with like the financial side of things, because I'm like, I know that will come eventually. Because if you have the right mindset, and if you have the right work ethic, and you surround yourself with the right people, the money's going to come. It's just going to be a matter of time, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think that really, because I've kind of looked at everything that I'm doing and what my goals are and what I want to do, and I'm like, I really don't think I need to change much that I'm already doing. You know, I think
just reps.
I just need to continue evolving and continue to grow, which that is what I could attribute to, I guess. I hate calling it success, because I don't really feel like I'm successful yet, but I guess the success that I have had so far because I am pretty well respected when it comes to like other journalists in MMA. Like, I mean, I've had people reaching out to me like from gyms and like people that train fighters or people that are fighters. And they're like, man, I really love your content. Like, so-and-so showed it to me, or, you know, somebody at my gym showed me your content. And so that's like, I think where I'm getting the most people that actually watch it are like fighters and people that train, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, you've narrowed down in a good niche of like bringing light to all these fighters that aren't Adesanya or Volkanovski or Conor McGregor. Like,
exactly.
Everyone knows who Conor McGregor is.
Yeah.
Very few people know who Dakota Bush is.
Right. But look at his record. I mean, he's 11-4.
Yeah. And like,
it's crazy.
It's one of those things that you might get to talk to a guy like Dakota before he makes another run.
Yeah.
And gets back going on things. And then,
yeah,
there it is. It's like,
yeah, you never know.
You never know. And I think you're doing a good job. I enjoy, I'm more of a, I am always blown away by your clips, and like I watch them and I try not to be like jealous because I'm like, she's got the captions and they're colored and they bounce at you and they go, they draw you in. You do a really good job with the production value. In a year, you went from starting a podcast to interviewing multiple UFC fighters. Like, you got a Piper interview, which people may not understand. That's a very big deal. He's a big
that
name
was
fighter.
Through the UFC. So like, you don't just get Joe Piper on your show. Like, you have to go through. So like, a media outlet from Sweden actually hired me to do that interview. And they actually asked me.
You look like you're from Sweden.
I know that Joe Piper was worried that I was from Sweden. He was like, "Is this for Sweden?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I live in America." And he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." He's like, because his opponent was Swedish, so he thought we were gonna be all about his opponent and like, be really biased. And I'm like, "No, dude, I'm a fan."
Just
like,
get on there. Piper, you suck. From Sweden.
Yeah, it's pretty funny, but yeah. So that was through media in. That was like a legit media interview that I did. But my podcast, that's all independent. Like, usually how it works is people just ask me to come on or they recommend somebody to come on. So like, if I ask somebody to come on my podcast, that means I like really want to have a conversation with you. Like, there's something, maybe I'm really impressed with your fighting, or if you're not a fighter, you're just somebody that I really think we would have a good conversation. But it's not very often I ask people to come on because I have so many people that want to come on already. And it's mostly like local fighters and stuff like that. But yeah, like I always have people that want to come on, which is really cool. And I think it has a lot to do with my content, because I think when you make good content, that's the easiest way to attract people to want to come on your show. Because then they can kind of see like, oh, this person, is a similar vibe to me. We have similar interests, so it would probably be a good conversation.
Yeah.
So I think that definitely helps doing the content like that. But I'm trying to think of where I was going with that whole my ADD isn't like full effect right now.
Oh, I get you.
But yeah, so like, I don't know. I think I've come a long way in a short period of time with it, but I do think that eventually it will all come together and people will kind of realize what I was trying to do the whole time. Yeah. It just hasn't all necessarily come together yet, but it's getting there, and doing those interviews definitely helps with like credibility. And they did ask me, I don't know if I'm going to do it, because I don't know if I have the funds. But they did ask me to do UFC 300. And the only thing is that I would have to like cover my travel
to
Vegas. Which isn't a driving distance.
The same company that hired you. So you'd have to pay for food, hotel.
So I'm going to have to figure that out.
That's next month? Or is that later this month?
That's April.
300?
Yeah.
That's right.
April 13th, I think, is the
$299 is the next one. I forgot. We just had $298.
Yes.
So that would be, as of right now, it's looking like Potan is going to headline that one.
Yep, which I'm very excited about, because I called it. I said that was going to be the main event. I said Pereira versus somebody is going to be the main event. I knew it.
All right. We're kind of coming to a close here, so I'm going to ask you a couple quick successive questions so that way we don't drag it out too much longer. And it's not dragging it out. The problem is I could sit here and probably talk to you for hours. and then it's only for us. It's literally only for us. What's the fight you want to see in the UFC this year that you think needs to happen, or a beef that needs to be settled? Like what needs to happen this year? For me, it's Conor needs to come back and fight this year, or he needs to walk away from it and be done. And it's not even with Chandler. I'm just tired of hearing about it, and that's my big thing for this year.
I actually was thinking about Conor today, because I think about fights all day. That's all I think about. No, literally, I think it's all I think about.
Yeah.
Conor versus Chandler, I think, has lost its spark. I don't think that fight needs to happen. I don't really care about that fight, to be honest. I just don't anymore. If they would have done it right after The Ultimate Fighter, huge fight. Would have been massive.
Right?
Would have been massive. I think that ship has sailed, and I think that's why we're not seeing it booked. I don't think Conor has any desire to fight Michael Chandler, not even because he thinks he's not going to win. He's Conor. He's a businessman. So I actually think, here's my idea. Here's my idea for Conor. Why doesn't Alex Volkanovski take some time off? Conor's not going to fight anytime soon.
Get the bag.
Alex Volkanovski versus Conor McGregor, main event. Both former featherweight champions. They could do it at lightweight. They could do it at welterweight. Who cares?
They could fight it like 205.
Get Volkanovski the bag. Yes.
Yeah, he deserves a big bag.
Yeah, he does. He does. I mean, I don't even think his purse was $1 million, his last pay-per-view.
750, I think. 750 or 850.
And I know there's other stuff on top of it. So, but they got to pay their coaches. They got so much expenses that people don't realize. They got to pay taxes.
Only made like $150 on that.
Oh, that's
retired
rough.
And didn't get the press coverage.
Yeah, that was kind of dumb. I didn't like that.
Dana was a little harsh on that.
I didn't like that. I don't think he likes Cejudo.
I don't think he does either.
Yeah,
he's not a likable guy.
No, I actually really like Cejudo.
Really?
Yeah. But
hold on.
Did your camera die?
That one did. Hold on.
No worries.
I've got batteries, but I've never gone this long with it.
Yeah, mine does the same thing. My battery only lasts like, I don't know, 2 hours at the most usually. 2 or 3 hours.
The hard part really is getting it all synced up when it's done. And
yeah.
It stops filming after an hour, which is...
We're back. What were we saying? We were talking about Volkanovski. Trying to think where I was going with that whole thing. Oh yeah, Henry Cejudo, he only made $150.
Only made $150,000.
So my other idea for Volkanovski, in the meantime, while he because I do think he would benefit from taking some time off.
Yeah.
For sure. And I think he already probably realizes that. I would actually really like to see Volkanovski added to the commentary team or the analyst desk or something like that. Because think about it. He has an amazing personality. He's hilarious. He's got the Australian accent is phenomenal. And he's also really smart. So I think that would be a really cool thing for him to do if he wanted to do it. And it would give him something to kind of focus on when he's not in training camp. Because he was talking about that, like his mental health and stuff. Like he doesn't have, I guess, not having like a goal, not having something to work toward is part of the problem, I think he was saying, with like being out of training camp. And so maybe that would be something cool that he could do in the meantime.
Yeah.
To kind of help with that. Because, I mean, I don't think people realize how much work it is to be an analyst and to do commentary.
Yeah.
It's a lot of research. So.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know, just learning how to pronounce everyone's names is a disaster.
It's really hard.
All those.
I'm so bad at it. I'm so bad at it.
Especially with all these Russian fighters coming in. I just know I need to end it with of some sort.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Last thing I'm going to ask you is, well, you kind of already answered it, but kind of didn't. I was going to ask you, like, essentially, did you ever want to fight? That was one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Like, could you ever see yourself being a fighter past just fighting to learn how to fight? Like, actually, or maybe not even necessarily doing a competition, but like actually going and fighting.
It's funny you ask me that because that's how I got into MMA.
What, someone asked you if you wanted to fight?
No, I wanted to fight.
Oh.
I mean, I was already kind of into it. Like, I thought it was cool, whatever. Actually, when I first started watching it, I thought it was crazy. And then I started to kind of be like, okay, you know, and listening to Joe Rogan's podcast kind of. And that's why I think I was so excited to start doing interviews myself, because that was part of what helped me get into the sport. And so I know that doing this will help other people get into the sport in a good way, where they actually have respect for the fighters and not the freaking idiots online that talk trash about fighters because they have no idea who these people are. You know, they think of them as like characters on a movie or a TV show rather than humans. So I think that's where it came from. Like, when I first, you know, watched Rose Namajunas, I think it was, can't remember if it was her first, it might have been her first title fight with Joanna, when she won. And I can't remember which one it was, but it was like
the head kick to Wei Li.
No. This was like years ago.
Oh.
When Rose won against Joanna for the title. I can't remember. I can't
First
remember.
Run.
Yeah, I can't remember all the details
because
I wasn't really super, like, I knew who Rose was, and that's why I was watching the fight, because I'm like, oh, a 115-pound girl is fighting, you know,
hey, and
it's huge, and it's a pay-per-view. Like, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, and then I watched it, and then I started binge watching The Ultimate Fighter, but I watched all the women's seasons, like those seasons where they had women's fights. And then I started to learn, like, all the training that they do and the recovery and like all the things that go into it. And then I was like, I wonder if I could ever do that. You know, like, I'm like, it might be a little late, but I'm like, well, Lauren Murphy started kind of late, so maybe I could do it. And she fought for a title, you know? So I'm like, I don't know, maybe I should start training. Maybe I should see if I could do this, you know? And I didn't think going into it that like, oh, I could definitely be in the UFC. Like, I didn't think that. But I was like, well, I'm going to maybe start with like boxing or something and then work my way into MMA. And I feel like I could do boxing. I feel like I could compete in boxing. I mean, I still feel like I have more to learn in boxing, but I feel like I could do it. You know, I could do it. I'm not saying I would win for sure, depending on the opponent, but I could do it. I could do it, and I would probably survive. I don't, you know, maybe I would get knocked out. Who knows? But probably, I think I would do okay. But then like kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA, that's where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, because there's a lot more injury possibilities in those sports. It's a lot more brutal. Getting kicked is a lot different than getting punched. I've been punched hundreds of times. It's really not that bad. I mean, it's really, I don't know. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. I'll say that. Like, and I've been hit, like, people have hit me, like, where I knew that they were going 100%. Like, most of the time they weren't, but I've had a couple sparring sessions where they were definitely going 100%. They were trying to knock me out. So I think that, I think I could do boxing. I think I would love it. I think it would be really fun. The only things that I don't know is, like, how am I going to do on a weight cut? You know, what weight would I even fight at? Because I'm 5'1", I'm not tall. So 115 would probably be, like, where I would go. So I would have to figure that out. Because I'm, like, 127 right now. And I don't lose weight quickly by any means. So
I'll get you in that sauna and put you on that distilled water. You'll be dropping weight like crazy.
Yeah. So that, and it's really because I do have so much respect for the fighters, and I only would want to do it like, and do it for real. Like, even if I'm training too much, like, or if I'm taking it too seriously, because it's like, oh, you're doing an amateur fight, why are you doing all this, you know? But I still just have so much respect for the fighters that I would want to do it that way. And, You know, I don't know if I would make a career out of it, but I would want to take it seriously when I do it and just, you know, see what happens and see if I can even do it. If I can, first of all, make the walk and then see if I can even win a fight. I don't know.
It's pretty
but
cool.
I think it would be a really good experience for me. I think it would help me grow a lot as a person. Even just the idea of trying to get to the point where I can fight. I think that in itself is a big learning experience that will help me grow. Because it will challenge me in a lot of ways. Like right now I'm being challenged trying to learn kickboxing. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard. It hurts. It's hard. Like, it sucks.
Yeah.
But that's how I felt when I started learning boxing. I was like, this is hard. This sucks. You know? And then I remember, like, I had a couple sparring sessions where I just felt like, God, I just suck.
Maybe this isn't for me.
And I started sparring like 2 months after I started training at that gym. Because I don't know, I was impatient. I was like, I just want to try sparring. Because I'm like, I don't want to spend a year training and then find out I can't even take a punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me make sure I can take a punch.
Let's not waste too much time.
Yeah.
I get you.
So, and then now I'm like really itching to get back to sparring again because I've kind of gotten a little bit of a taste of it. Like, I sparred a couple rounds with a local fighter. Just boxing. We were going real light too. So it wasn't like anything intense. And then I've started doing advanced boxing classes where there's like, we're not hitting each other hard, but you are getting hit. You are getting punched a little bit, you know. We're basically like touching each other up, basically is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But it's to help you learn defense. And it does work. It really does work because there's no better way to learn how to avoid being punched in the face than being punched in the face. It's the best way to learn. It really is. So it's like, and that's why I really do appreciate my coach because he's kind of created a way for us to learn how to get punched in the face without all the head trauma. And I think the reason that he's done that is because he started competing in boxing when he was really young. He was 13. And, I mean, they were going 100% in most of those sparring sessions. So I think that probably has a lot to do with it. You know, he's probably thinking, I don't want to put my fighters in my team through what I went through, you know, when I was coming up. Because while it does help you become a good boxer, does help you become a good fighter because you're going to be tough and, you know, you're going to know what it's like to go 100% before you ever walk in the ring. Mm-hmm. But you take a lot of head trauma doing that, and the benefits don't really outweigh the trauma and the effect on your health. So, so I appreciate that, you know, that he kind of has created a way for us to, you know, train and learn those skills that you really can only learn in sparring, but to where it's controlled and we're not, you know, there's a lot of gyms still that spar like really hard, 100%. And, you know, I think there are times for it. There's a time and place for it. But when you think about, the benefits just don't outweigh the risk in those situations. Yeah. So, but, and I just went on a whole tangent there like I usually do.
You're good.
But it's really just like, I think it's important to, I don't think you have to fight. I don't think you have to train to be a good analyst, to be a good MMA journalist, but it's just something that I want to do for me. Because I do think that I do think it helps. And
I think it would help you tremendously, not just you, but anyone who wanted to, because, like, I mean, you can't really be a food
nobody's
critic.
telling me to do it. Nobody, like, people are telling me not to do it.
Well,
you know,
people don't want to see you get hurt.
No.
But like, I mean, you
but
gotta.
I don't care.
You gotta cook a meal to understand how food works, so that you can be a
Yeah.
food critic. Like
Yeah.
you're wanting this to be something for the rest of your life potentially. So it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt to train a little bit and learn. Like, you may not like it, you may love it, but
well, it also goes
either
back
way.
to like that's how I got into it. That's
Yeah.
why I got so into it was
Yeah.
because I eventually wanted to do it. So I'm like kind of, like, yeah, I could end up and live till I'm 100 years old, but what if I don't? And I never did the things that I have such a small window of being able to do, because like the window's closing on me being able to train and compete like this. So I'm like, I got to do it now, or it's probably never gonna happen.
Yeah.
I at least got to try. And so, do I think I'll end up going and competing on the highest level? Probably not. Let's just be honest. I have lupus. Like, let's be honest here. And there is a fighter in the UFC that has lupus.
There we go.
Yeah.
Bring in some awareness.
Yeah. There is one.
One. But hey, this is a Lloyd Christmas, so you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, exactly. I think her name is Lauren Mueller, I want to say is her name. I could be wrong.
Sounds like someone with lupus.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that is... Yeah, I think that I do obviously have a physical limitation, and I'm not 22. So the odds are very much stacked against me in that sense. But I do think that I could do it maybe for a little bit. Maybe it be a chapter of my life. Mm-hmm. And during that time, try to take it as seriously as possible. As if I were to go to the highest level, even though I know that's probably not going to happen.
It doesn't hurt. It can only help you, really. But
yeah, and then at the end of the day, if I have a few fights and... I get the experience, that's only going to help me with my analyst career in journalism. So I think either way that it would be a worthy pursuit for sure at this point, as long as I don't get injured and all that kind of shit, which that's the scary part. Yeah.
It keeps a lot of people out of it, but I get you, especially with if you already have something that makes it hard on your body. You don't want to risk making those joints and ligaments worse. So.
But you know what else it does is it keeps me on point with my lifestyle. It keeps me disciplined.
Yeah.
So which also helps with lupus. So I actually think that if I didn't train, it would make it harder for me to deal with lupus, because I wouldn't be as motivated to eat healthy. I wouldn't be as motivated to train all the time, which staying in motion and working out does help with lupus. So I think that in a weird way, it does kind of help. And I actually know of fighters with like cystic fibrosis and other illnesses that they're dealing with, and they're still fighting. So I got interviewed a fighter, he has Crohn's disease. So I don't think I have an excuse. I think that I think it's still possible. I think it's something that I could do at some point.
Yeah.
Could I make a career out of it? Most likely no. But could I do it and actually like have a little bit of, I guess, an experience with it enough to really be like, oh yeah, I did that, I think so. So I think it'd be really cool, as long as I don't tear my ACL or some shit.
I hope you don't.
Yeah, me too. I don't want to manifest that for myself. Yeah.
If people would like more content of yours, where would you send them? YouTube, Instagram, where would you like people to go?
Gosh, there's so many places you could go.
YouTube
is where I have like if you like podcasts, I have 2 channels. I have Bre Talks MMA, which is just BRE Talks MMA. That's where I do all my fight breakdowns, stuff like that. And then I also have, trying to think, because I changed the name of the channel. Yeah, the channel is my full name. So it's Brianna, BREANNA Eckert, so ECKERT. So it's just my name.
I'll find them and I'll make sure I put the links in the info, but just say it because some people only listen.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where you can find me there. And then on Instagram, Bre.Eckert. So ECKERT is how you spell my last name. But that's where you can find my clips.
So cool.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. you're gonna see her in an octagon at some point, whether she be dropping elbows or interviewing fighters. So
yeah, who knows?
Thank you so much. The face of MMA in St. Louis, Bre Eckaet.
I guess.
Thank you seriously
Thank you.
for coming.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on.
I always enjoy talking to you because
it's fun.
You're always a good conversation.
Likewise.
Hey, don't cause any trouble out there, people.
Or I'll come beat you up.
Yeah, send Bre up here. Awkward goodbyes, as always.